vow after the very accident that changed her life that she'd never let her insecurities get in her way. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I am so nervous about this. I tried to do that exercise, but like my table said, I was in it. Because this is amazing to be here. This is everything I stand for and have always believed in. And yeah, this is a blessing. So there's so much I want to share, and it's going to be a straight story. So I'm just like, whatever comes out, comes out. So what people see when they look at me is that I'm in a wheelchair, and a lot of times they think that that's hard and that must be so hard. But the wheelchair is not what's hard, and it never has been for me. And a lot like Melody said, and your story made me cry. Everything you said was just so raw. I was prepared for this because of everything that I experienced growing up and because of the depression that I've lived with my entire life. And my depression has been severe depression. I've spent as long as I can remember just wishing that it would be over already, that I would just die. And so mine's not gonna be funny. Like, that was really funny. I liked it, but yeah, mine's not funny. It's kind of really sad, I guess, but it's also, it's about strength and not giving up and getting yourself to a really good place where you can help others and make a difference because of what you've been through. And so I'm happy and I'm funny and I'm outgoing and all that, but okay, so I'm just gonna start. I'm in the middle of 5 girls, and my parents, they met when they were pretty young. My mom dropped out of high school her senior year. My dad graduated. They both ended up working in a bakery together at a grocery store and got married a year after they were dating. And they started having kids one after the other until they had 4 little girls, all about a year apart, which is crazy. And so because of financial struggles and, they were young, they were growing apart, and they both had the things that they experienced growing up that made them who they were and able to handle what they could in the ways that they did. So they got divorced. I was 4 years old. I remember that day that they got divorced. I remember seeing my dad drive off, just being confused, all of that. But I was always a thinker and kept to myself a lot. I spent a lot of time in the counselor's office during recess, in preschool. In kindergarten, I remember throwing my lunch away because I just didn't have an appetite. And these negative thoughts were just starting, and they were constant. And there's 5 of us girls all together, and I'm the only one with severe depression. So, we all experience these same things, and some of the things that we experience, my sisters experience more, or, so, yeah, I was already a thinker, but I also was very athletic, and it was obvious from a really young age that I had a lot of talent and could go far in any sport that I chose. I was always voted on any team that I was on. If I just started playing it, I would be most improved, and then I'd be MVP, and then, and like I say this, I know that sounds conceited, but the thing is, I never thought that no matter that I won all of those awards, no matter I was voted most athletic in middle school and high school, like it didn't matter. I was never good enough, and every time I played a sport, it was just so hard to face because I thought, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, I'm not that good. I suck. And going out on the field every time just made me have to constantly face those fears and those, insecurities that were just so painful to me, not ever being good enough. And so that's just telling a lot about further in my life, but I'm going back to after the divorce. So I remember, going to my dad's and we'd play hide and seek in the dark, and it was always a really fun time. We went there every other weekend. Then when we were at our mom's, though, I remember her crying all the time. And I remember this one time she got off the phone with a bill collector, and she was on the floor just crying. And all 4 of us, my youngest sister came later, all four of us were just trying to comfort her and make her feel better. And it was just so hard to see her always in so much pain and just not thinking that she can do it. We ended up in the middle of a very nasty custody battle, and I mean, the divorce just drug out for years, and it got ugly. And we were in the middle. We didn't know who to believe, who to trust. Like, we didn't want to not like anyone, you know, but it was really confusing. And that did not help my overthinking that I already had going on. And so about a year and a half later, after their divorce, my mom remarried, and this guy just swept her off her feet. He took all of us in. We were going camping, we were going on vacations. He was building tree forts with me, playing sports with me. All of a sudden we had a family again, and our mom was happier than we'd ever seen her. And life was really good. And then when I was in 4th grade, 2 years later, it came out that he had been molesting my sisters. And I was in 4th grade. I wasn't told the entire truth, but our family was torn apart. And once again, I was lost, and this time I didn't have anyone, no guidance at all. Like, my mom was just as lost in her own way and losing it more and more every day. My sisters were keeping to themselves. We were all broken apart, and none of us could, support each other. We didn't know how to do it ourselves. So we all went our own ways. And I was still playing sports, but we were once again broke and playing at higher levels my mom couldn't afford. She was cleaning houses, and a friend's dad recognized that we were struggling and that I had this athletic gift, and he paid for me to be on a select soccer team. He drove me to the tournaments. He, just took me in. He gave me his daughter's snowboarding gear, took me snowboarding, which is so expensive, but I love it. And I got to have the opportunity because, someone gave it to me and opened up my mind to see that there's more to life, because all I had seen was just struggle and being poor and thinking that you're not good enough and thinking that it'll never get better. That's all I was shown. And it's not my mom's fault. That's all she knew. And so it's like getting a glimpse that there's more to life, because you can get so stuck in your own mind. And so he took me on, and I was playing those sports, but at the same time, my mind was getting worse, and I didn't understand what was going on in my family. I thought it was my sister's fault that he couldn't live with us anymore. My mom did the right thing initially. She called the police. He, had to move out, all of that, but eventually he started coming around again. And my mom is a good person. This being here and telling more of my truth, I haven't done that before, because this affects more than just me. This is my mom, this is my sisters, but this is okay. This is life, and that's what they need to know. And I have finally gotten to a place that I understand it's okay. And by them, hearing me say this, seeing the support, the love, they'll know that it's okay. But yeah, so I was getting worse. I was playing these sports, so much potential. Like, I can't even explain. I was so athletically gifted, but I just I was self-sabotaging. I would be playing, and I would go to score the goal on the undefeated team that, hadn't been scored on the entire year, and I would purposely, I remember kicking it, not having any aim, just freaking out and just blowing it on purpose, because I didn't think I was good enough to handle that. And at the end of the game, everyone's like, "Good game, you did so good." And I would be like, "No, I mean, don't you know, I didn't say this, but it's like, don't you know I could have scored that goal? Like, don't you know?" And they would always tell me, "You're too hard on yourself. You need to lower your expectations." You always telling me that I'm think too much. I'm doing, trying to do too much. But I knew I was capable of more, but I was holding back, and it was fear. And so when middle school came, sexuality came into play, and I started getting way worse, because I started understanding what had really happened, what my stepdad did to my sisters, that he's a pervert, that he's around, that my mom's allowing this, that, she's telling me to be nice to him, like she's losing her mind, and I'm getting angry, and I don't want to be in this world. I don't want these guys hitting on me. I don't want to kiss anyone. I don't want to be used. I want someone to care about me. And I just knew too much. Like, everyone around me was just having fun. They were carefree, and I didn't understand how to be like that. I wanted to, but I couldn't. I knew that there's more to it. I knew that taking advantage of people, that, pressuring people to do things, that it's hurtful and it affects you on such a deeper level. I'm watching everyone in my family falling apart still from this. And so I got worse and worse. In middle school, I remember telling my track coach, which I had never lost a race. I beat all the guys, like, at one of the track meets. That's why I was good at all the sports, because I was so fast. And I remember CPS was coming to our school and constantly taking us out, and I would be with my sister in the room, and we would, be irritated that we're in there and just thinking, we can't tell them the truth. He's still around. And yet we want to, but then again, we don't, because we think they don't actually care. They're not actually going to do anything. We're told all these things about them, and what have they done, And so then we'd leave there fighting, crying. I'd be mad that my sister tried to tell them more than she was supposed to, and, all of this mess. And I told my track coach, crying to him, that I can't do track anymore. I just can't handle it. And I was bawling, and he looked at me with, like, this fear, because he knew that I was not going in a good direction. Started hanging out in a bad crowd. I started drinking and smoking in middle school. I just started pretending like I didn't care about anything, because it hurt when I cared. And so I distanced myself from sports. When I did play, I just didn't try. And when I was in school, no one in my family had gone to college. I didn't think we were smart enough. We couldn't afford it. So I just became the class clown. I remember getting put in the smart math group in 5th grade and thinking this was a mistake. How did I get put in this? And that's the first day I started cheating my way through school from then on, because I didn't think I was smart enough, and I didn't want to get, people thinking I'm stupid. And so then 8th grade, I ended up meeting a guy. He asked me out every day for like 4 months. He was very persistent, and he was a good guy, but I did not want to go near a relationship. I didn't want to be, have to start kissing and doing things that I didn't know I would even be able to do, because I had done some things because of pressure, because I felt like I had to, but I never wanted to. And so I ended up dating him, though. And that was the time my mom was getting worse. This guy is still here. The home life is not good. And I'm looking at find out how much time I have left. But okay. And so I kind of just went all in with this boyfriend. I pretty much lived with him, and all of my worries were just gone. I was able to hide from my problems and feel love and safe and cared about. And then we were dating for 1.5 years, and he started wanting to smoke weed all the time, just became really obsessed with it and started changing. And I thought that, if I broke up with him, he would choose me over weed. I just thought, of course it's love. Why wouldn't they want to be with you? You're so much more important than that. And so when I broke up with him, though, that's not what happened, and I started losing my mind. I started doing the same things that I saw my mom doing all those years. I remember hearing her screaming and crying on the phone in the other room, begging this guy who molested her kids to love her and to just be good to her and just be the person that, he told her he was. I was screaming and crying. I would leave school, I'd go home and call him 1,000,000 times because he had ended up dropping out. So I was just obsessed. And I was thinking that if I don't get him back before he has sex with another girl, because we had only been with each other, that he would turn into all the other guys and just be a pervert, that being with one person was what you're supposed to do. And I was freaking out because I'm now driving, I'm going to the gas station, I'm getting whistled at, I'm getting hit on by all the seniors in high school because I'm newly single, and I hated all of it. I was going to parties because I was in that crowd, and everyone is drinking and using drugs and abusing each other, taking advantage of these drunk girls. I saw all the sickness, and I couldn't not see it, and I just didn't understand how no one else, why was this not hurting people? Why was this not bothering them? And so I ended up dropping out of school. I lost 20 pounds. I wasn't eating. I was losing it. And And I ended up, this is something I don't usually tell because it's pretty embarrassing, but it's real. Like, I had these sleeping pills because I wasn't sleeping, and I poured them all on the bed, and I wanted to take them, not to kill myself, just to go to sleep. That was my rationale. But I actually didn't take them. I maybe took one or two, but I didn't take them. But I went and told my mom that I took these pills because I was crying out for help, which is really embarrassing. I'm like, when my mom called 911, when the paramedics are in there and they're taking my vitals, and I'm just like, I felt like an out-of-body experience. Like, what is going on? What did I just do? This is so embarrassing. And I didn't tell anyone. I haven't even told my mom yet. But yeah, that happened, and it was not for attention because I didn't want anyone to know I did that to begin with. But I was desperate. I didn't know what to do. When I got back home, I just was like, you need to figure this out. You can't live like this. You're not gonna kill yourself. So like, figure out a way to live. And I started, after I got a DUI, MIPs, all of these things, I started watching The Time again because I didn't practice this. So yeah, I was really lost, but I thought I was getting life together. I was working, I was doing landscaping, boat detailing, cleaning houses with my mom, just working really hard, trying to pay off my DUI, trying to make my life better. I enrolled in Running Start because I didn't want to go back to high school, and you can take college classes. And I thought things were getting good. But then a month after I graduated high school, and I was talking to the soccer coach at the community college because I knew that I needed to use my athletic gift, and I already lost my chance of earning a scholarship to college and doing well there, but I was still gonna try, and so I was gonna play for the community college, and so that was the plan. But a month after I graduated high school, I was the passenger in a motorcycle accident because I was still in that crowd, the one that doesn't think about consequences. And yeah, I'll just tell you this story too. It's another thing I don't always tell. But we were out the night before. My friend wanted to go to this party. It was her boyfriend's friend's birthday party. And I didn't really want to go, but I knew that if I didn't, I would just go home and cry myself to sleep. And so I'm always trying to just be normal and go out and live life. And every time it was a party because that's all that the crowd did that I was in, even though I hated it every time I went out. But I also hated being home and being sad. So I went and we stayed the night there, and I remember the night before when I was trying on jeans and trying to figure out, I was like, none of these jeans looked good, and throwing them all on the floor, and just nothing was ever good enough. And so that will come up later. But and so then we went to the party in the morning. I wanted to go do something, productive, and I was stuck out there because my friend drove. So I was a little bit irritated because that's what we always did. It was just the same thing, going nowhere, and I wanted more. And this guy had a motorcycle he had gotten 3 weeks earlier, and he was giving people rides. And my friend came back, and she's like, go for a ride. And I was like, no, I don't really feel like it. And I was in one of those moods, and she's like, come on, go for a ride. And I was like, okay, you're right. I need to snap out of this. And so they went to get me a helmet, and the helmet didn't fit. And I was like, this helmet doesn't fit. And they're like, oh, it's fine. And so then I'm in her car, and they're like, hurry up. And I'm like, I'm looking for some tennis shoes. I was wearing flip-flops, short shorts, and a bikini top. And I was like, I'm gonna at least wear some tennis shoes. Like, look at what I'm wearing. I'm trying to think smart and do the right thing, but there's no guidance anywhere in this crowd. And so I ended up going on the bike. He was passing, we had 3 trucks of friends with us. He was passing them on windy corners. And I was like, this is not safe. I know that's not safe. You don't pass cars on corners. But they were all out their window going, yeah, like cheering us on. So I'm like, okay, it must be fine. We went down to the dock, and they pulled out the beer, and everyone started drinking. We were gonna go out on this boat. But I shared 2 beers with my friends, so I had a beer. Yes, I was drinking. And then they decided we're gonna go to a lake instead, and everyone got back in their cars. I didn't wanna get back on the bike. I don't know why. Don't remember if I saw him drinking or not. But I tried to get in the truck with my friend, and it's a little bench seat, and she's like, no, don't ride, just it's gonna be crowded, get on the bike. And so I rode with him, And when we were going, he asked if I wanted to drive, and I remember being like, yeah, and I honestly thought he was going to pull over and I was going to try driving this big crotch rocket. Like, I don't know. But instead, he waved his hands in the air, and our friends were behind us, and the last thing I remember was saying, I can't reach the handlebars, grab them, and we were going off the road, and it slid into a cement wall barrier and ejected me off, and I blacked out as I was going. My friend was behind us in the truck. I flew up and hit a street sign. My helmet came off because it was too big for me, and I went over a 15-foot cement wall drop and then 30 feet down the incline, and I broke 18 bones altogether. My friend found me. My legs were spread apart. My face was in the dirt. I wasn't breathing. I had 4 broken ribs and a collapsed lung. This arm was broken in half, 18 broken bones. And then I started saying, I can't breathe, put me on my back. And so she moved me onto my back, and this is when I remember I was trying to feel my teeth, and I had a broken tooth, and there's just blood all over my hand, and I was just like, my teeth, where's my effing teeth at? And she's like, your teeth are fine. And then I started trying to move my legs, and I was just like, I'm paralyzed, I'm fucking paralyzed. And I just kept saying that over and over again. And she's like, Meg, you're okay. And then I remember the paramedics above me going up the cliff, I was numb, and going into the helicopter, everything was just rattling, and it was just so surreal, like what had just happened? I'm 18 years old, and I'm paralyzed now. And my parents came in to see me before the surgery. The first surgery was 11 hours of taking the shattered pieces out of my spine because my T12 shattered. The second surgery was another 9 hours. They put a cage in my back. Then 3 weeks later, they put rods in my arm. But when my parents came in to see me, I just kept saying over and over again, he let go of the handlebars. Who the F lets go of the handlebars? And there's a lot of F words, but So yeah, I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. I lost 30 pounds. I was puking every second, and I had like 10 visitors a day. Like, it was a small town I grew up in, and I was the athletic girl. Like, this was the tragedy of the town. And I didn't know anyone else in a wheelchair, so this was pretty scary to me. But I remember everyone looking at me with so much sadness, and just like my life was over. And I just remember one day like gesturing towards my legs and just crying and just saying, this isn't a big deal. Why is everyone making a big deal about this? I'm gonna be fine. And then I told a newspaper reporter while I was in the hospital that I believe this happened for a reason, and it's gonna make me stronger. And that's in print, so that's pretty cool. Because I always have believed that everything happens for a reason, and that comes from living with severe depression, where you have to believe that. You have to believe that everything makes you stronger, and that's why you're going through this, and it's gonna be awesome when you overcome it. And that's how I've lived. And so when the accident happened, my idea was that I was gonna walk again, and I was gonna be on the USA soccer team, and I was gonna be running in the Olympics, and just like, that was the only way I knew, but I was like, I'm gonna do it. And so as time went by, I stayed in the nursing home for a month while all my bones healed so that I could go to rehab, where I was there for 3 weeks. I thought I was going for like 7 months. I was gonna work hard, and I was gonna go home walking and just like show everyone, that I'm like this gladiator that just was able to overcome this crazy accident. And instead, I went home in a wheelchair, and I was begging them in the hospital not to send me home. I was like, I'm not ready. Why are you sending me home? Like, what is wrong with you? But insurance just pushes you out. And I gained the use of my quad muscles. So I was just like, what is going, like, I have so much progress. Like, I'm capable. And going home, I laid on that couch for 3 weeks straight, just staring at the ceiling and just trying to sleep away just all the pain and the fear that I had. And another thing that I forgot to say was, when I was in the hospital, the hardest part about it was the regret that I felt for all of the things that I had taken for granted when I had the chance to do them, and thinking that I would never have the chance again. And that's what was hard, was thinking I was never gonna have the chance again. And so when I was laying there for 3 weeks straight, I just wanted to escape. I wasn't taking care of myself. And I remember one of the first things I learned was I was freezing and I just tensed up. I didn't drink water when my throat was dry. I just swallowed, like you just don't care. And I remember getting a blanket finally and just being like, oh my gosh, I'm warm. Like when you're cold, get a blanket. So there was all these little epiphanies that I had throughout my healing process. But my mom convinced me to go to the grocery store, and that was the start of it. When I went, I just tried to hold my head up, not cry, but everyone's looking at me with pity. And so this is the last part I'm gonna really be able to share because I only have 3 minutes. But at the grocery store, people would come up to me and they would say one of two things. They would either say, I am so sorry this happened to you, this is such a tragedy. And I would be thinking okay, well, this is my life now. So can you please quit telling me that this is a tragedy? This doesn't need to be the worst life you can live. This is a life. And then the other thing they would tell me is that I'm such an inspiration. And I was just thinking, I want to be dead right now. I'm stuck in this wheelchair. My mom convinced me to come to the grocery store. That does not make me an inspiration. But after a while, I got so sick of hearing both of those things that I just said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to do something bigger than I ever would have done before, and I'm going to make sure that no one ever has the chance to look at me with pity again. And I want to be a real inspiration. And so that was the start. And I didn't, just like Gayatri said, I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I knew that I had to. I just didn't have a choice. And so I pretty much did. I ended up, I earned a full ride scholarship to the University of Illinois. I played there for 5 years, wheelchair basketball. I made the USA team in 2013, 14, 15, and then we won gold in 16. And I always thought that if I made it to the Paralympics, that I would have overcome my depression. That was my fight. That was my light at the end of the tunnel. I was just this is my goal, and this is how I'm gonna make all of this better. And I fought so hard, and I cried every day for 5 years straight. Every day. In college, I called home. Everyone was scared if they didn't answer my call that I would kill myself. That's how bad it was. But I kept going. I did all of that while crying every single day. It was crazy. And after the Paralympics, when I went home, my depression was worse than it had ever been because it was still there. And I thought it wouldn't be. I thought I could overcome it. And so what I've learned over the past 2-3 years is that my depression might always be there, but it makes me stronger, and it gives me the chance to make a difference and to help all of these people that I'm able to understand and I'm aware. I feel things. I can do more because of what I go through, and life's a journey, and understanding that it's all about the process. And so I'm out of time.